I think the big misconception that a lot of people have about producers is they think producers are people who just find financing for their films.
I immediately fell in love with the story and the script.
We were looking for an arresting image that could be well represented in like a little icon on your TV.
There's something about bad sound that just reads as cheap.
This was a case of bend over and lose your filmic virginity, but you'll get a movie made and your name will be on it.
Anytime there's like that amount of money, there's going to be lawsuits.
There's nothing more important than the safety and the health of everyone who's working on a production.
It was like a passion project. They said, we want your movie. It was a bidding war. It was a major bidding war.
You can't buy that kind of publicity.
Thanks for tuning into Producerville. We have an exciting conversation for you to listen to today. We are interviewing Barry J., who is the producer, but also the writer and director of a fantastic horror thriller called Killer Therapy, which was in 2019. Wasn't it great? I was blown away.
It was awesome.
Yeah, I was like really, really excited that we discovered this movie. One of the things that's really cool that Barry did was he cast the movie with, horror veterans like PJ Souls from Halloween, Adrian King from Friday the 13th, Tom Matthews from one of the Friday the 13th movies, Daeg Faerch from the Halloween movies, Ivy George from Paranormal Activity, and it's like I really liked that he did that because these actors, you hear their names and you feel like they're going to deliver a certain kind of performance. And in this movie, they stretch and they do such a great job. He talks about the benefits of casting a movie that way, which we think you'll find interesting. He also talks about how he financed his movie. And
yes,
yeah, I don't want to just let the cat out of the bag now, but it's interesting. And it kind of gave me pause because I was like, you did what? So, because financing, a movie is a very tender subject. And so he talks about his financing of the movie, which we found interesting.
Yeah, and he goes in depth, like really in depth about the stunt / effects construction that was used for one of the more well-known kills from the movie. And there's some really good information there when he explains that.
Yeah, in horror movies, you're doing outrageous things, and sometimes they can get dangerous. And so he talks about how they very carefully coordinated this one particular scene, which was really cool. So listen, we're not going to talk anymore. We want you to hear this interview with Barry J. about Killer Therapy.
Well, it started with the title. So another film I produced and directed and wrote was called Ashes. And I produced it under, if you look at the fine print on that one, you'll see Killer Therapy, LLC. And it was, my partner and I had that LLC together, and we did a web series with it too. And but I said, it's been it won't let me alone. I just said this. I just feel like this is a great title, and I would hate to just throw it away on an LLC, right. And no one ever know about it. So I said, would you care if I wrote a script called Killer Therapy? He goes, no, why would I care? Go ahead. So that's where it started. It just, the title got me, and then I thought, okay, I've got clearance, and now where do I? What is Killer Therapy? And I think what I wanted to do was, what happened to Norman Bates.
Interesting. Okay.
What before we came into the picture, what was his childhood like? Were there therapists? Did it all go awry and this is how he ended up? And that was the basis of it. And then I just thought, the second thing I thought was, because with Ashes was a very, very low budget, and this one I wanted to work with the likes of some of my favorite my favorite actors for my favorite horror films.
Right.
And I had a wish list. So I guess it started with a script, a concept, a script, casting ideas, and that's what got the ball rolling to say, okay, I really want to do this. People are responding to the script, and that's where it began.
Awesome. Well, can we talk about this cast? Because,
yes.
When I saw I was right. I was like Adrian King from Friday the 13th, PJ Souls from Halloween, and Daeg Faerch also from Halloween, Tom Matthews. Friday the 13th, right? Tom Matthews.
It's part 6.
Part 6.
One of my favorite.
Yep.
One of my favorite of the sequels.
Yes. Oh, I love part 6.
Mine too.
Ivy George, we interviewed Ivy George. Nate and I are working on a documentary right now for Paramount Pictures. It's called Unknown Dimension, and it's a documentary on it's the whole story of Paranormal Activity. It's the whole success story, and there's no bonus features on any of the Blu-rays or anything like that. Nothing. So we're finally pulling back the curtain, and we're talking about how this little movie, $15,000 movie, became this $193 million movie, and the franchise is so successful. And Ivy George is in part 6, and she came in last year for an interview, and she was so nice. We loved her.
She's so nice. I've known her dad for over 20 years. So when the time came to cast, I just asked, would she consider doing this? I know she's had some big movies and a TV series like Big Little Lies.
Yeah.
So I just thought, I should just ask the question. And he was amazing. And his wife, Krista, who actually, he said, Krista really handles all of Ivy's stuff. But, your family, yes, of course, we want to do this.
That's great. I mean, that's called an in. Like, you have an in.
Yes.
And so...
absolutely. I knew exactly who to call and who I wanted while I was writing it with my fingers crossed going, God, if I can get Ivy to do this when I'm done, I'll be so happy.
Right. Yeah. Now, what about the others? So did you know Adrian, PJ, Dag?
No. I literally had like a little piece of paper with a handwritten wish list. I have loved Tom Matthews since Return of the Living Dead and Friday the 13th, Part 6. I had looked him up on IMDb. I had tried to follow a career that had become non-existent. And then, in a very interesting turn of events, I needed a contractor. And a mutual friend said, I have a friend, Tom Matthews, who's a contractor. And now you could just, without even knowing me, you can imagine how my eyes popped out of my head. And I said, excuse me, who's the contractor? And she said, Tom Matthews. And I explained to her, and she goes, oh, wow. She goes, okay, yeah. And so one day for Christmas, she didn't know what to get me for Christmas. And we said, why don't we just all go to dinner? It'll be my treat. And I said, that sounds fun. That sounds great. And I show up at dinner, and Tom is there.
Oh, wow.
And my partner and her had schemed to kind of take my souvenir stuff from my room. I mean, we're talking, I'm a fan. So she like my Return of the Living Dead artwork and stuff like that. They stole it from my room behind my back and put it in the car, in the trunk. So once it was out of the bag, I had stuff for Tom to autograph. And we took a picture that night. And then from that point forward, I executive produced Never Hike Alone and the new one. And I said to Vin, I know Tom Matthews. I've had a nice introduction to him, and I bet you, if you want to write a scene and write Tommy Jarvis in, he'd love to read it. He's totally left acting, but I bet we can get him to do this.
Wow! Oh my gosh!
And then, of course, he read it. He loved it with some rewrites, and boom, he was in Never Hike Alone. And then I sent him Killer Therapy. I actually sent it to him for one of the therapists, thinking, he's still got a full company under his belt, and maybe he's just easing back in. So I just kind of put it out there, like,
right.
As you're reading about the married couple and you like the dad,
right?
If that, or this therapist. And he wrote back that, oh, I absolutely want to play John Langston.
Wow. And he was really good. Everybody was so
really good, right?
Yeah, I was blown away. I was like, this movie, man. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I knew PJ was in it, Adrian was in it, but I just didn't see it. I don't know how it got past me. And then when I was doing research to look for interviewees and stuff, I was like, oh, I got to interview Barry J because I want to find out about this movie. And then I watched it, and so it's okay. So I have to ask you a question. So from a producing standpoint, did the casting decisions sort of help the movie in a way? Because obviously people are going to look at this list and say, oh my gosh, these are like veteran actors from this movie and that movie, and like there's a lot of cameos and stuff. Does that stuff help a production, or does it does it do anything to hurt it?
No, I mean, I would say no. It doesn't do anything to hurt it. You see, the thing is, it's a unique situation as the producer that and the director is that the movie was moving forward, and it was my idea to reach out to these people, even though it might impact the budget or the scheduling or whatnot, because it was just part of my dream.
Right.
Adrian King fell in love with the script, and you should have seen me go down the street that day clicking my heels in the air. Like I wanted to stop everyone I knew and say, Adrian King is going to be in my movie. But to answer the question, I just figured if you're making a horror movie, like the movie was going to be made, if I had to do it like I did Ashes, extremely low budget with a wonderful cast, but they don't have the credentials behind them that this cast does. It could have been done, but that's not what I did that already. And I wanted to do this. I wanted to be a kid in a candy store. I wanted to tap into the icons of the 80s and let them show their mature acting chops in completely different roles than we're used to them in.
Yeah. I think that's what surprised me, was that everybody was really not, I mean, they were stretching, but it was working. And a lot of those scenes were super intense. And and it's funny, you watch a movie like Friday the 13th and it's like, it's so absurd and outrageous. And, it's like, it's a horror movie, it's a slasher movie. But in a movie like this, your actors, and my opinion is that they have to sell what's happening. And like, so it's got to work.
Yeah.
It's,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And PJ Souls playing, Dr. Lewis, really stern and serious and all about
great.
The rules. She was so good.
Yeah.
It's totally different than than her role in Halloween and certainly Carrie. And it's been a long time, but I just thought, she was great then. I'm sure she's even better now.
You've hung out with PJ, obviously, on set. Yeah. She laughs all the time. She loves to laugh, and incredible. It's like she erased that in her performance. She was this stoic, serious, and I've never seen her in a blazer like that either. Like she looked so nice too, and she just nailed it. I was like, wow, this movie. All right, so can you tell us about the financing? So this is the big question that a lot of our listeners, when they're listening, it's like, well, I want to make a movie, but I don't know how. And we've had everything's different. Everybody we talk to is like, there's a different like A to Z for that. So can you tell us how you secured your financing for the film and what the budget was?
Yeah. I mean, it was me, to be honest. I pulled a George Romero. I used my savings. I've worked hard my whole life. I decided this was something I absolutely wanted to do and was going to just take a chance and bet on myself and bet on the film. I know everyone doesn't have the capability at their fingertips to just say, hey, I want to do a movie and lay it out there. The budget was north of $600,000.
Okay.
And for me, Ashes, which I also did, was my film school. I'm proud of it and I love it. But I learned a lot on Ashes, and I felt there's still a lot more to learn. I have a lot more to learn, but I just felt like I was ready to just kind of, take it to the next level with Killer Therapy, as I do want to take it to the next level with my next project called Aroused, which is a dramatic thriller.
Okay.
And on Aroused, I am only doing partial budget, and we are raising the other part.
Okay.
And I've got two producers I'm working with, Nick Thorough and Carl Rumba, and they're going out there to secure financing.
Right.
So there's definitely it's a very different world when you're putting a pitch deck together and, getting all these sorts of notes and table read notes and producer notes and shaping up the script and sending it out there and trying to get people attached to it. It's a different process.
Right.
So I was very, very fortunate that this, like I said, this is just something I had just, people might have traveled the world with that savings, but this is just I am devoted to horror movies and creating horror movies, and I wanted to do this, so I did it.
Yeah. Now, listen, would you recommend people fund their own movies? Because it's, you know, it's not typical. I mean, producers typically will go raise the funds and you know, so it's a very uncomfortable area for a lot of people to, you know, take their savings and put it into a movie. And I actually know another person that did that. But was that an like stress that you had, that you said, God, what am I doing? Or were you totally confident and totally sure? And how was the experience after you plunged in and committed? Was there any meltdown or anything?
I wouldn't say meltdown, but depending on the day you asked me.
Right. I bet.
I mean,
it's a lot of money.
Yes, it is. And believe me, it didn't start out that way. It grew and it grew and it grew. And I could explain why I guess that's this type of podcast, so maybe I should, but it started out more in the 250 to 400 range.
Okay.
And what happened is, at one meeting with the producer and the line producer, we realized we went over 250, and as producers and anyone else listening, you know, knows or might not know, the actor rate changes.
Yeah.
And the line producer was, you know, showing me how I could offset some costs and stuff, and I just said no. I said no, just no. Just if the budget is over 250 and the actors is supposed to make more, then that's what it's supposed to be, and that's what they're supposed to make.
Right.
And so be.
Wow.
And so then the budget just sort of went up, and it sort of opened up the pearly gates. And then of course I had, you know, this wish list, without divulging anything, but they weren't making base rate. But to have PJ, to have Tom, to have Adrian, to have Dag, to have Ivy was an absolute gift. And it was worth it to me to spend a little extra, to have their presence on screen in this film. So there was that. So, you know, what I suggested, I don't know, George Romero has always been an inspiration to me. He called in friends and favors. He spent his own money. Him and the other producers spent their own money. Night of the Living Dead wouldn't exist unless they put it all out there on the line at the time.
Right.
And it's one of my top favorite horror movies of all time, as well as the inspiration of how he made it happen. So did a lot of people tell me, don't spend your own money? Yes, almost every day.
I bet.
Almost daily, especially as it kept going up and kept going up. And I realized the high school I needed cost, you know, $3,500 a day. And I said, okay, then we can get it for one day and let's shoot 9 scenes, you know?
Right.
And we did, and we made it happen. So yeah, a lot of people, would I recommend it? To answer your question is, I don't know. If you've got the money and it's not going to hurt you to lose it, and you really want to get your project done just the way you want it with no outside voices, there's that benefit. You cast who you want, you do what you want, you cut what scene you want, you add, you know, all that kind of stuff. You have nobody overseeing you with finances.
Right.
And that was enjoyable. But if you don't have it to lose and you don't want to spend your own and you can find it somewhere else, that might be the better route to go at the end of the day. But here's the thing: if I'm going to use John Doe's money or Jane Schwartz's money, or my money, I want the project to do well and succeed. So it shouldn't matter whose money.
Right.
You know, that's how my heart thinks. Like, it shouldn't matter if it's theirs or mine.
It doesn't make the money any like less important or less valuable.
Right.
Or, you know, you want to make money for your investors, and so there's a point you're making.
If I'm telling them it's going to make them money, then I should tell myself it's going to make me money.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and of course, and I could not say this with any more honesty. At the end of the day, it just isn't about the money, because, you know, in especially with indie horror, it's flooded right now. And I knew that going into it. Maybe there was a day where you could make a cheap horror movie and see a great return. And I don't think, God bless the Blair Witches and the Paranormal Activities that are the exceptions beyond all imagination, but generally speaking, if you're going to make a low budget horror movie and you could break even or make a little, I think of it as doing the movie I want to do, getting it out there to the world, honing my director skills, my writing skills, my producing skills, building, a repertoire of films that hopefully people enjoy. And now that I'm going out there with a new project, having that repertoire hopefully helps me secure financing for the next one. But, in the indie world, to think that I'm going to end up like Blair Witch, is okay to think and to wish and to hope and to believe. But realistically, I have to also expect that if I break even, it's also great.
Right.
And you got to do it for the love.
Can you talk a little bit, like from a producing standpoint, like the hiring of the crew, like what that process was like?
Yes, it's glad you asked, because I absolutely loved the crew, and I would say 90% of them, only 90% because of availability, were the same crew as Ashes. We all just gelled so well. It was mostly word of mouth, mostly. My post-production super, our producer posted on a female producer group on Facebook, and Morgan Monk Henshaw responded to that, and we have been dearest friends ever since. And I just, now there's every movie I do, there'll be Monk right there. There'll be Monk right there with me. Jay Lee is someone I knew through his sister, and we worked together on a teaser, on a kind of a pitch deck teaser for a script I wrote a few years ago, and I asked, and then he did that web series. So, and then he's absolutely brilliant. And he did Ashes. He also edited Ashes, and then he did Killer Therapy. So and then Jay knew the makeup people, Laura and Sue, who I used to call Laura Sue on set, and they are phenomenal. So it just kept happening, word of mouth, and I just feel very, very fortunate. They were fun, devoted, just dedicated, talented people, and we all enjoyed showing up every day.
That's great.
Yeah, and like Vic, who worked as one of the second camera, I think, or electrical on Ashes, became first AD on Killer Therapy. And it was like,
oh wow,
yeah, and it's like, I'm a big believer in that. People are like, I don't know if he's done first AD on a film before, and I was like, well, I don't know. This is my second one I've directed, so I guess we're in the same boat. and I guess we'll be okay. The music was done by a friend of mine, Kevin, who I've known for some years. He did sound on Ashes, and Ethan Arluck, I've known him since he was 12, and he's now in his late 20s, and he's the son of a dear friend, Richard Arluck, who's also a producer. And so it all came from, I don't know if you know this, I founded a gym called Barry's.
I did know that. I saw that when I was researching you.
Yes.
Wow.
So a lot of my friends, I would say most of my friends, I met through Barry's. I met Richard Arluck through Barry's, where I first met Ethan, and he brought him to class. And so it's a lot of it came from, like, the first movie I ever did, that I co-wrote, The Chosen, was with, Ben Jehoshua, who I met at Barry's. So it's been, it's been a wonderful place to meet a lot of friends, and these friends have, spawned into creative colleagues,
So cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, so that's how the crew got assembled. And then once I had, like, my script super, Nicole Banal. Oh my God, I love Nicole. And she was like my right-hand person sitting in the seat next to me. And she was on Ashes and Killer Therapy. She's, again, somebody who I would like at every single movie I do. And then she had friends that she referred to. So we're just very lucky, that people on set knew other talented people. Ash Sutton did sound in both films. So it's as a matter of fact, one of the many reasons I wanted to do the next film is a chance for us to all be together again.
You work so intensely together on a movie, you feel like a family, and then when it's over, it's sad, So
it's so sad.
Yeah, you just want to do it all over again.
Yes, I mean, people told me about get ready for those 12-hour, 14-hour days, and I was like, you don't get it. Those are my happiest days. Like I just love the hours flew by. I can't account that for everybody. It might felt long to some people, and I get it.
Can I say something? Maybe it's you. Maybe it was people liked your direction, and it was your personality, and they loved the script, and they saw the vision. And so, I'm giving you credit here.
Thank you.
And it's like, I mean, did you? I mean, in terms of producing, did you do anything to cultivate that kind of environment? Because that's what everybody wants as a filmmaker, is a producer on a set. They want everyone getting along. And so any tips on how to create that kind of really cool vibe and like that family vibe, or was it just something that came naturally to you and you just,
that's a really great question, because I always made it really clear that the number one thing on my list of important was everybody having a good time.
Yeah.
It was just, if everyone's having a good time, we're going to enjoy showing up every day. We're going to work really hard for something we're passionate about. We're going to feel creatively free and open, and communicate with each other and support each other. And from that environment, so much is born,
right?
Yeah. I mean, a movie isn't going to be any better with a stern or unfriendly environment. It's not going to make it enjoyable. It's not going to make it a good experience. It's not going to make the movie one bit better, possibly worse. But and I don't know. So it was just, and I just think there's sort of an energy where you meet with people and you just kind of click, and and maybe we're all of like minds, and but they were just the friendliest and the kindest. And, I just look forward to seeing everybody every day, and there was one or two people that didn't seem to fit with the bunch, and production coordinator let me know. And I just said, I'm going to leave it in your hands, because, that's the most important thing, is that everyone shows up comfortable.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And I guess they weren't doing as much work as everybody else. And I just said, well, let's not even make it a thing. Let's just say, thank you for the couple of days you were here. And then that's it, and onward. And I think people appreciated that, because you're working so long. It's such especially Ashes, we're all in the same house every day.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just one of those.
It can drive you crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. We all got to work really close to each other every day. And I think that's an important thing, is like, if I'm whatever, the captain of the ship or whatever it is, I have to listen, because it's not just about what I say, it's about what I hear, so it was always important for me to listen, and I took notes from actors on a way to say a line differently.
Oh, you did? Okay. That's interesting. Okay.
Absolutely. Once they really, once they really just like really embrace the character, and they know how the character talks and walks and thinks, and they're like, this feels like I would say this, and I'm like, you're right.
Right.
Let's change it. You now officially know better than I. And Nicole, who said, like I said, was like my right hand person. We'd watch that. She wasn't just watching for continuity. We were watching the scene together, and she would have ideas, and I would say, you should produce a film, and she goes like, that's what I want to do. And she had producer mentality, and so I found it very helpful to have her there to watch through the scene. sometimes they'd be rewriting scenes on the fly with the actors if something didn't work, and I would double check that it wasn't working with Nicole and tell her what I wanted to do, and then she would like co-sign if she thought, no, I think you're right. I think if you take time out right now and fix that, it'll be better.
Yeah.
So it was great. It was absolutely great to have that kind of collaboration. It's a
What kind of cameras did you use?
I used the Canon Mark II. It was a 4K digital camera, cinema camera.
That's a $10,000 camera. So
yes.
So listen, if you're financing your own movie, you might as well buy the camera. Then now you've got it for the next movie.
So, well, the first AD Vic was telling me about renting it, and I was like, well, renting it sounds like it's not that much of a difference than buying it and having it for everything I need from here on in, So I just did. I just treated myself to it.
That's fine. I think that's a great idea. I mean, it's not that much money. I mean, you look at what the budget is. I mean, it's like, it's not $1 million camera. It's $10,000. So
exactly.
Now, did you rent the lenses? And did you rent the lenses?
Yeah. I have a pretty decent set of lenses that our DP Jay Lee told me. He kind of guided me on what lenses to get for the Canon, the Mark III, the 5D that we used for Ashes, and they all pretty much transferred to the new camera.
Yeah.
And then I added a couple of lenses that I didn't have.
Yeah.
So I've got pretty much a good scope of lenses right now.
That's really awesome. I mean,
yeah.
The lenses are like what cost all the money. So the cameras, $10,000, but you need all the lenses and then you need the media cards, and it adds up. So everybody
it adds up.
You're thinking about buying. Yeah, exactly. Just make sure that you don't just buy the camera and go, what the heck? It's like, no, that's like half the cost. So, but that's cool. Awesome.
What about the locations and stuff that you had said earlier? Jumping back about one of the locations when they told you how much it was, you were like, well, we're just gonna have to be there for one day then. Can you talk a little bit about the locations?
Sure. Now, I love this question because as an indie producer, I did actually, even at this budget, even buying that camera, I was still trying to save where I could. And pretty much I was the location manager. And I went scouting places, and I found it online, and I'd go visit, or I would just book it online. I found the house for Killer Therapy on Gigster, and the co-producer and I were searching on sites. And I guess the school is a very popular school. It's been used in many films, and right there on the site, it tells you, per day, what it cost. And I was just like, okay, well, I told myself right in the beginning when I was writing it that like I was gonna get a school, like that will make this movies just sort of look like, it didn't cost me $5,
Right.
Right.
I just wanted a school to be a school. There's something about a school that feels so real, that you can't fake it. So that was a biggie. So I was really just determined to get a school, and I did, but it did mean shooting. Every scene you see in the school was shot in one day.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was nick of time. We were in nick of time too. I'm not gonna lie. We just came right under the wire.
Right.
And the only thing we did, correct me, I just lied. So the only scene that wasn't in the school, that took place in the school, was the principal's office. Because now, and this is funny, I didn't like the principal's office in a school. I just didn't. It just didn't look principal-y enough. So I found an escape room for a detective office. And that's that very film noir kind of scene with
okay, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh wow.
Yeah, with everybody in there and his crying mother and the blinds of the light coming through the blinds going over Adrian. I kept saying to Jay, just film noir for this scene, just make it look different.
That's a really good tip. It's like, those escape rooms are pretty elaborate, and there's a lot of
and
value.
they're almost built in a way that the way that a set is built.
Exactly.
It's not actually. Yeah, it's like a set.
Exactly.
That's like one of the coolest indie filmmaking tips I think I've heard in a long time. It's like, go find an escape room that has like a jail cell in it, or like, or something. And
right.
That's a good one.
Thank you. And then,
smart thinking, Barry.
Thank you. I try. Sometimes I get lucky.
It's working. Right.
And then there was a set in Burbank that just had a lot of good rooms that could work as, where Brian got electrocuted by Dr. Hyland, and where he got PJ's interview scenes were shot there. And actually the cell where he's kind of left with all the photos after getting electrocuted. There's a quick scene in the cell. All of that was in one, like, what do they call it? Just built set.
Right.
Inside Burbank that anybody can rent. And it rented per day, and you can use as many rooms as you want. The whole thing becomes yours. You could leave your shooting stuff there. So we had that for 3 days.
Okay.
And then the forest was up in Santa Clarita. Okay. And that was something look, I am sure somebody like Blair Witch could probably just find a forest and shoot the movie in 8 days, and maybe they didn't pay anyone for the forest, or maybe they did. I don't know. But I would think a forest would be free, like go find a forest and shoot. No. So you have to have like the makeup thing, and you have to have the trailers, and you have to have the fire department. And there was so much learning experience to just needing a forest that I was blown away. And of course, your caterer has to show up with the crafts and all that kind of stuff, craft services, and they got to have lunch, and they got to have places to plug in. So I was like, okay, we need restrooms. So you can't just go to a forest with 50 people and say it'll work.
Exactly. That's the stuff our listeners want to hear. It's because it sounds easy. It's like, oh, we'll just traipse around in the woods and film it. It's like, no.
No, you're paying for water tanks. If God forbid there's a fire, you're paying for the lavatory. You're paying for everything. So it was absolutely necessary. And I mean, you got to make some decisions. There was no decision I saw that could be made about cutting. The forest was in this particular story, where he does what he does to the bully and everything. Just, I needed it.
Yeah.
There were some things I could do without. I could maybe say, 1 day at the school instead of 2. But I couldn't just say, okay, no forest, because of everything that came along with it.
Let me ask you about the scene about the bully, because it's a very specific scene that I was like, I've got to ask Barry about this. Because like, I don't know how worried we should be about spoilers, but hey, you're listening to Producerville, everybody. We're going to spoil a couple things because we needed to
spoil away.
Right. Exactly. So he, what he does to the bully is he hangs him. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I have questions. So as a producer, we had another movie in the series where somebody was like set on fire. Like there was a person, on fire, on flames. So we asked them, what goes into preparing producing wise for a scene like that. So, Dag Ferch. Dag. So
that's a rough one to pronounce.
I know.
Dag Ferch.
Dag Ferch.
Who is, by the way, so fun and so awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. I met him once at a convention, and he just seemed he was like young, it was when he did the Rob Zombie Halloween.
Yes.
Thing, but he was a really nice kid. But yeah, so you have a scene where, he's hanged, he's poisoned, something has poisoned him.
Yes.
And he's hanged. So my question is, how do you prepare for a scene like that? And also, is there any extra paperwork, and do you have to clear that kind of stuff with SAG? And it's not like, like Adrienne sitting at a table, because she's a therapist having a conversation. This is, you're hoisting him up by a rope. He's hanging there by his neck. So obviously he must have had some kind of apparatus under. Tell us how you did this scene from a producing perspective.
So we have stunt coordinators on set, and they have read the scene, and they know what needs to be done. So the actual noose that goes around his neck when Brian is first strangling him and pulling on it, is around Daig's neck, and the stunt coordinator taught them how to make it look like you're pulling and how to make it look like you're strangling.
Okay.
And there's really, I mean, that's to credit to the guys. There's literally like no tightness around Daig's neck. You know, he's just making it look like there is. Now, once he's pulled up, he has a brace around obviously under his shirt, a brace around his torso, and is actually being hung from the back. And we still keep the noose on him, and then in post, that string that he's hung up by is erased, as well as some, like, you know, when you pull somebody up by this brace, their shirt might look square around the shoulder, or it might look a little bulky around the torso. All of that is fixed digitally in post.
Okay.
And then you depend on a lot of, you know, while he's hanging there, get a close-up of his face, get a close-up of his feet dangling, get a few of his feet dangling, feet shaking, feet falling limp, you know? So when you put it all together, you know, you've got the look on his face, you've got the feet, you go back to Brian, you come back, you see his head fall, you see the feet fall.
Right.
And then and you get one nice clear shot. And by the way, it was really difficult because once he was up there on the rope, even, you know, in the brace, he slightly turns. And if you slightly turn, it ruins the effect.
Okay.
So I actually, you know, out of the entire thing, that moment that you see on screen, that wide shot of Brian looking at him hanging there, that was the moment we had before he turned, and the shot was ruined. You know, but that is what it is. That's no one's fault. It's just, you know,
right.
You hang from a rope, you're going to turn.
Exactly. Yeah, it's probably more difficult it's probably more difficult than it seems to film it right and have it look right and have it look real. And I gotta say, he did an amazing job. I believed him. He was like grunting and like he was like, oh, it was like felt so bad. You know, a lot of the scenes in your movie are so intense. You know, even so like when Brian's like ranting in the office or in one of the therapy rooms, and Adrian's like, Brian, you need to sit down. Like, you know, it's like it really explodes, and I really love that scene. Okay, so I have to ask, did Daig make stunt pay? Because it was a stunt, right? And so whenever you have an actor do some kind of stunt, so did you have to pay him extra?
No, but he didn't make base, so you could just say it was sort of all lumped into the agreement.
Lumped into the agreement.
Okay. Yeah. And I you know, he got what he asked for, so I hope he was happy. We had him for 4 days. So the truth is about that, the hanging is the scene the next day at night when Brian wakes up and he has slept out there.
Right. And
we see the feet dangling. Those actually aren't Daig's anymore.
Okay.
And I don't want to give away too much, but the hallucination when, you know, he sees Daig in the woods.
Yep.
But we still see the body hanging next to him. That's practical. So that's also another person hanging. That's the stunt person hanging there, wearing Daig's clothes. So it definitely ended up being a combined effort, and he didn't have to do all the hanging. Just that one incredibly, you know, intense scene. And then from there on in, the hanging was another body.
Right. So during the production, so we're not talking about post or pre, just during the production, what was your biggest producing challenge? Was it that shooting all 9 scenes in the one location? Was that like your biggest challenge, or was there something else?
Surprisingly, no. See, you know, the producing getting all 9 scenes done at the one location, the only challenge I had was time.
Yeah.
You know, now when we went for the car crash and we went down to Malibu, and again, you know, you can't just go, you know, drive on the road and say it's going to be free like the forest. It has all of its, you need your trailer, you need your this, so we actually rented a ranch in Malibu, which was one of my favorite days because I'm a huge, huge animal lover, and they had goats and cows and dogs running with goats freely, and I was like, this is my heaven. I'm doing a horror movie surrounded by goats. So light, dealing with daylight. Oh my God, it changes more than you know.
Yeah.
The car crash. That was my Jeep that they were in.
Okay.
So, the fake broken glass and going into the tree, finding the right tree. By the way, that was another thing about the forest. Like, remember when we did all of our forest scenes, including young Brian climbing the tree and dealing with the bully at the top of the tree. That tree was 5 feet off the ground.
Okay.
So, it was a matter of what tree will look like it's high up, but it isn't, because we're not having a 12-year-old in, a 20-foot
Exactly.
tree.
Yeah.
I'm just not doing it. I'm just like, we need a mattress below like a 5 or 6 foot branch.
Okay.
And Jay did a phenomenal job of really shooting it in a way where I can't tell.
Yeah.
So the same thing. So we had to find the right, the car crash had to happen. Driving off the side of the road thing was an easy thing to actually make happen. It was the crash into the tree, and once, when they wake up and they're like that, the sunlight and shooting the scene over and over again as the sun kept changing was a challenge.
Yeah.
Also the driving itself, because you have to have a stretch of road where there's no one else around, and it wasn't blocked off for us or anything. We're just a little movie. Sometimes a car would go by or something like that, or the sound wouldn't be right. And so we kept driving back and forth and back and forth and back and forth on this little stretch of hillside road.
Yeah.
So that was probably the most challenging day. The driving and the car crash and dealing with the sunlight was all it was a great day, but that was the most challenging.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit earlier about post-production. Can you focus on the editing? Can you talk a little bit about the editing process once everything was shot and ready to be edited?
Yes. So Dustin Fine, who is one of my favorite people in the world, I also know from Barry's. He was taking my 5 a.m. class for God knows how many years. And at that hour, maybe he mentioned what he does, maybe he doesn't. But one day after I'd retired and made Ashes, he said, "Where you been?" Because I was still taking class, even though I wasn't teaching them anymore. And I was like, "Oh, I went to make a horror movie and took some time off." And he goes, "You need someone to edit it?" I said, "What do you do?" He goes, "I'm an editor." And
that's LA for you.
I know. He said, "I said, you are?" I said, "Well, Jay Lee is actually editing it." He goes, "You need someone to do your trailer?" Turns out Dustin is mainly, now he's done Killer Therapy, but he's a trailer editor, and he's done dozens of huge blockbuster trailers, 48 Meters Down, The Purge, on and on. And I looked at some of his work, and I was like, he wants to do the trailer for Ashes, and he did a phenomenal trailer for Ashes. And when Killer Therapy came along, and he said, "Next time you do a movie, if you want me to edit the whole thing," he'd love to, because we just known each other for like over 10 years just from classes. And I said, "Yeah." And he is as responsible for, if this movie has a cool, awesome feel to it, it is equally him to me. There were sometimes like the scene, of young Brian in the first therapist office where he is assaulted. Was a complete. It was many different scenes of the parents and this. It was his idea to like, I need this insert shot. I need that insert shot. I gave him all the insert shots in the world he needed and some more. And to montage it together with taking the dialogue from all those other scenes. Those scenes actually existed.
Right.
But instead he just took the dialogue and put it over the close-ups of Brian, back and forth in his bed, fidgeting with his fingers, looking really stressed. And it just works. I found it so much more disturbing. There's actually a scene where the therapist holds Brian's hand, and I was like, and that disturbed me.
Oh, wow.
When we shot it that day, we all agreed that was the scariest scene in the movie. but yet I felt more uncomfortable looking at it Dustin's way. And I was just like, no, this is it. This is absolutely killer. No pun intended. And then that the last montage at the end was also, I had every single therapy attack as its own standalone scene. And he just took them all and montaged them together. And if you look at it, it's kind of like a trailer in a way when it all hits, when he loses it at the end.
Right.
There was also, I don't know if you see the scenes where he's in heavy makeup in front of the mirror.
Yeah.
A lot. Those were all standalone transition scenes where he almost narrates about what therapist happened next and what it was like. And they were fun to shoot, and Michael did a great job. But while watching the footage back, it didn't go with the rest. And I just thought, maybe we just don't need those. And that was Dustin's thinking also, is that the first thing he said is, I don't know if we need the narration. We just need to show the therapy to therapy to therapy. And I said, well, I don't mind if we don't use the footage. And he said, no, we might use the footage. We just don't need the scenes. Right. And I was like, all right. And Dustin,
I get that though. Yeah. I get it. Yeah.
And he just got so creative with it.
Yeah.
You know, and actually those shots of those intermittent, those little intermittent narrative scenes that aren't used, some of those shots in that montage are my favorite. They're just creepy.
Yeah.
So I owe a lot to Dustin. He helped reimagine a lot of the movie with me. And it's a better film because of it. And he again is someone who, if I do a movie, I'm calling Dustin.
So did the movie get theatrical distribution?
Not theatrical. I got a sales rep, which I did not do for Ashes. And Ryan Burry, literally Burry, Bury, if you can find a better name for a horror movie sales rep. He saw the whole potential for it. He just said, I love what you did. He loved the movie. He really appreciated, he's an 80s horror film fan like I am. That's the other thing. He's a huge horror film fan. He's not just a sales rep. And when he saw PJ Souls and Tom, he got it. He goes, I see what you did here. I love it. And that's why, so he got 4 digital media to release it. We have UK distribution and international distribution coming December 4. Right now, we're just North America and Canada. So I'm excited to see it get, and he's constantly working on other territories. And I met with Ryan about Ashes, and I don't know, for some reason I just thought, this is my first film. It's a much smaller film. Let me see. I was very lucky. I had 4 offers for Ashes from distribution companies, including Gravitas Ventures and The Orchard. And The Orchard became 1091 Media.
Yeah.
And 1091 Media did a good job, but to be honest, it just seemed like they signed it on, they put it out there, and then, and that's that. And I started wondering what it would be like to have a sales rep to keep going after territories.
Yeah.
And
so you'd recommend getting a sales rep?
I would. I make sure you structure yourself a deal that makes sense. And make sure you have somebody looking after you. Like, I'm a creative. At the end of the day, I can talk about the shots and stuff all day long. But when it comes to, and that's the thing, as a producer, I was creatively thinking, and I had someone overlooking the budget with me. And it's not surprising to me that somebody like me went over a budget. Because I cared more about having the school than saving the $3,500 and using a set. So yeah, I say if a sales rep could help, it could help. It's not what I do. I don't know how to go out to the Asian markets and sell this film. I don't know how to go out to Berlin and sell this film. It's not at all what I do. I didn't want to try to wear all the hats.
Did they handle getting it on Amazon Prime?
Yes, 1091 did. Yes. And that came after it had its run with clicks and rent or buy and all that kind of stuff. Now, Killer Therapy has a DVD, and Ashes did not. So I bought it just because I went on Amazon and I bought it just because I wanted the thrill of buying my own DVD on Amazon. I buy stuff on Amazon all the time. I'm just kind of an Amazon addict. So it was fun. And it was fun to see it arrive and open it up and hold it in my hands. And it was just like a cheap thrill for this movie-making horror fan.
So how involved were you in the marketing and promotion?
Very. When we first finished and we had a trailer and I wanted to create like a buzz, as they would say, around it, a friend of mine, Megan, who's also an indie film producer, Megan Friels, she referred me to a PR guy in Australia named Clint. And Clint is phenomenal. And I gave him the trailer to get out there ahead of the movie so people would get excited. Obviously it's going out to horror blogs. And if you're going to read, any of the major horror blogs, you're going to be a fan of people like PJ Soul and Tom Matthews, and you're going to be excited that they're in a movie. Because they hadn't been in a while, and I thought that was news. So I was very, very hands-on with Clint. Clint is, like I said, really great at what he does, and he got it in all the major. His name is Clint Morris, and he got it in all the major horror blogs, and that was really great. And then I created a Twitter account and built the audience. I was told Twitter is the best thing for building a film, and then I would get all the press from the blogs and the whatnot, and I would run it on the Twitter, so hopefully people would like it and retweet. And and I don't have Taylor Swift's Twitter account, but for an indie film who I was kind of doing all the rowing, it's pretty decent, and I think everything helps. And then I would use my own Instagram and ask. It's all about asking for favors, asking for people to please post or share or review it, whatever I could do to drum up ratings, reviews, sharing, I would do, just to, in terms of asking. And it helps, and, you hope the film generates enough good reviews and sharing on its own. But, when you're an indie film, you have to let people know you're there first. So that was my main concern, was just like, if I can just let people know we're here, let them know it's out, let them know the trailer can be seen,
Right.
And hopefully it'll snowball on its own.
Yeah.
And to some degree it did, which was great.
And
yeah, that's
also,
what's so cool about social media with, advertising, promoting a movie, is that you hope that it gets to that point where kind of people are doing the advertising for you. They're watching it and they're sharing it, and it just kind of goes viral, so to speak.
Yeah. And I was very lucky. I mean, Adrian and PJ and some of the actors were all great about posting about it when it came out and sharing articles and interviews and trailers and stuff. So
yeah, I was just going to say that, you have, actors that attend conventions, and so wherever they go, they're going to talk about Killer Therapy, hopefully, and so that's very smart too, I think, with the casting, is because now they've got 8x10 of them in Killer Therapy that they can autograph for a fan or something like that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And that's the dream. I mean, I know we're in a very unusual year right now, and a lot of conventions that I was planning on going to obviously got postponed or canceled and went virtual. For those listening in the future, this is 2020, and I haven't left the house in 3 weeks. So yeah, I mean, I'm in Las Vegas right now, and Tom was going to be out here for a big convention that Killer Therapy was a part of, a film festival / convention. And I was so excited about this, and the whole thing got kind of postponed. But that's all right, because they're still next year, and there's
Yeah.
still streaming. Because on one hand, people are home watching a lot more movies, and that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have one final question for you.
Sure.
Is there anything you would have done differently as a producer on this movie?
In different areas, yes, of course. There's always hindsight. There's probably ways I could have I could have saved money and gotten just as much, or as far as without cutting quality or cutting some of the major sets. There's probably areas I could have watched the budget closer. As if I'm speaking to producers who have a budget, I was a little bit more laxed, and maybe in hindsight, seeing what I have now, I could have been better about that.
Mm-hmm.
God, no. I mean, it was such a good experience. There are things that I look back about shots I wish I would have gotten, but that's more directorial, or some script things I could have done, or how gory it was, or how violent it was, or stuff like that. But no, I mean, at this point, I feel really good about it. It was just a really incredible journey.
Yeah.
And one, no matter what the film does, I've already said it to many friends, no matter what this film does, I'm glad I did it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a huge achievement. I mean, even no matter how good or bad a movie is, you've made a movie, and it's distributed, and it's amazing. One final question for you is,
sure,
because you wrote the screenplay as well, how did you know the screenplay was ready? How did you say, okay, I think it's done. This is the story that I want to tell? Did you have a lot of people read it?
I had my writing partner, Andrew Kropp, read so Andrew and I have written a few together, and what I do is I write a very, very quick first draft. I'm a very quick first draft writer, and I really loved this first draft. I knew I wanted to make Kill It Therapy, like that title had stuck with me. I knew I loved the concept and the idea of like a Norman Bates sort of backstory.
Mm-hmm.
And when I showed it to Andrew, he was like, wow. But he had some suggestions. Like, I had, Aubrey die along the way, much earlier.
Oh,
and,
okay.
and he suggested that. And I had to like sit with that and think, do I want Aubrey throughout the story and all that? So yes. So Andrew and I went back and forth through about 3 or 4 drafts. And then on set, even the rewriting kept going because some scenes didn't feel right, and I would take time out and rewrite them. The scene where she is on the bed with Brian, young Brian, after his meltdown at dinner,
mm-hmm.
and she has that quiet talk with him in beautiful silhouette. That didn't exist. I wrote that on the set.
Oh.
But the script is ready. It's just a feeling.
Yeah.
And when Andrew and I went back and forth 3 or 4 times, it was like, this feels really good. This feels really strong. And the process continues, like I said, on set and in editing. And honestly, even after we had a big, friends and family screening at Warner Brothers, rented one of their big screens out and packed the house, and it was phenomenal. After that, I cut a scene.
Okay, no, those things help. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you get to watch it on the screen and say, like you can kind of see it with an audience. Is that what happened? And you went,
yes.
Oh, got to get rid of that scene.
I was flinching. I was like, no, not working. Don't need it. And then Dustin said, you don't need it. And I was like, well, that's the word. So it evolves, but there does come a point where you have to close the page on the script and say, yeah, this is it.
Yeah.
And it's just a feeling. You just have to believe in it that much.
Yeah. All right. One more quick question.
Sure.
I forgot. How did you find Michael Kalicki?
Michael Kalicki.
Kalicki. It's his only credit. I looked him up, and this is the only thing that I can tell that he's been in.
So it is. This is introducing Michael.
And he was amazing. So
isn't he awesome?
He's like, exactly. I think for a movie like this, it's like you need the right person in the role. And I was surprised to see that he hasn't done anything else. So how did his involvement happen, considering he hasn't done anything else?
So good friend of mine who I met at Barry's, Carl Rumba, And Carl is a producer, produced Ragon on Broadway. And he's the one who's working on the new project, Aroused, with me. He manages Michael.
Okay.
And when he read the script, he was like, I think I got a guy for you. He hasn't done anything. I just took him on. I think he's great. I think when he hits, he's going to hit big. And I loved Michael's look. I loved his voice. I loved his sensitivity. But he was very calm. So I said, I like, that he did a self-tape for me. And I loved him enough to say, can I work with him? Is he coming? When is he coming to town? He lives in Brooklyn. So I lived in LA at the time, and he came to see Carl, and I worked with him and said, I want to put you on tape. I need to see you lose it. I need to see you just, go postal.
Yeah.
On this guidance counselor in school. Come in and hit the wall, hit the floor, cry, throw something at me. Right. And it took a few tries, but we tapped into it. And that was the moment I knew. I said, that's it. That's him.
Yeah. So exciting. I mean, we want to find that right person. And, there's that fear, I think, that producers, directors, they have. It's like, we have this story. We all see it a certain way. Are we going to find the cast, to deliver it? And I think in horror movies, sometimes they fall victim to, just didn't bring it, or like, and in a role like this where it's so hyper and he goes to these heightened senses.
Yeah.
It's like you have to bring it. And I thought he did an excellent job. So,
and a really nice balance of, I kind of feel sympathy for him, but he's also really creepy, and I'm a little scared. He just.
Well, that's Norman Bates, right? It's Norman Bates. It's the same thing. Yeah, that's what's so great about his character is like what happened, Norman? Poor Norman, and he's likable, and yet he's this monster. So.
Yeah, it's mental illness taken to an extreme.
Well, listen, Barry, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I promise you, I'm going to be recommending this movie to everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you can count me in my social media. Everybody, you got to see this movie, and I'm totally emailing Adrian and PJ and going, "Oh my God, you guys were amazing!" Absolutely.
That they were, and I'm just blessed to work with them. I love this interview. Enjoyed it so much. Thank you, guys.
When you put that much money, of your own money, into a project like that, you have to believe in it, and you have to go into it with your arms wide open and take what comes your way and just put your heart and soul into it. Like wrap your arms around it. Like that's what I got from him. I heard in his voice how important this movie was, and that the goal was to make a great movie.
Yeah, and he had so many nice things to say about everybody that was involved and worked in the movie, and you could just really tell that it was a very special time for him whenever he was making it. And I found it really interesting when he talked about how he bought the camera. He didn't just say, well, the camera was only this much, so I bought it. There was thought behind it. He kind of said you gotta weigh like the value there. You gotta look at what's it gonna cost us to rent this and all the equipment that you have to rent for it versus what would it cost us to buy it. And he saw the value in purchasing it instead of renting it. And now he has a really nice camera that he can use on another feature. Oh,
and that little tidbit about going to escape rooms to sort of production value of an escape room, really, really cool. That was inventive. I didn't think we'd hear anybody say that. So, all right, everybody. Well, thank you for listening to Producerville. Next week is going to be our final episode for this season. We're going to just sort of go away for a little bit, but we're excited to wrap it up with another great interview, and we'll see you next week.